In 1993, Yamaha built a motorcycle that looked like it came from another planet. No front forks, a single-sided swing arm at the front, hub center steering. While Suzuki played it safe, Yamaha launched the GTS 1000 and shocked the industry. It came loaded with technology years ahead of its time. Fuel injection, ABS, a rigid chassis that promised unmatched stability at high speed. This was Yamaha's message to the world: evolve or be left behind. But if the GTS 1000 was so advanced, why did it vanish almost instantly? Let's find out the shocking truth behind Yamaha's GTS 1000. By the early 1990s, Suzuki had perfected a simple formula: build practical sports tourers that delivered good performance without breaking the bank, use proven technology, keep prices low, sell volume. The strategy worked brilliantly. Suzuki's bikes delivered everything most riders needed without technical complications or premium pricing. The RF600 arrived in 1993 with 100 horsepower from a liquid-cooled inline-4. The bike used technology from the GSXR lineup but tuned for touring comfort. Price was under $7,000. When the RF900 launched in 1994, it followed the same philosophy. A 937cc engine borrowed from the GSXR 1100 made 125 to 130 horsepower in a practical touring package. Big 21-litre fuel tank gave 200 miles between fuel stops, comfortable dual seat, effective fairing, all for reasonable money. Suzuki wasn't trying to revolutionize motorcycles. They were giving riders exactly what they asked for: proven performance in a comfortable package at a fair price. The bikes weren't exciting or innovative, but they worked reliably and sold consistently. This practical approach dominated the sport touring market. While other manufacturers experimented with expensive technology, Suzuki kept building bikes the normal riders could actually afford and enjoy. But Yamaha was about to prove that sometimes winning the market doesn't mean winning the engineering war. While Suzuki was building practical bikes, Yamaha was developing something completely different in secret: a sport tourer that would showcase engineering capability rather than market research. The project started when American inventor James Parker patented his RADD front suspension system in 1985. RADD stood for Rationally Advanced Design Development. Parker had analyzed why earlier hub center steering designs had failed and created his own solution. Parker's system separated steering from suspension completely. Traditional telescopic forks do both jobs at once, which creates compromises. Under heavy braking, the forks compress and change the bike's geometry. This is called brake dive. It affects handling, stability, and rider confidence. The RADD system eliminated that problem entirely. Control arms connected to a kingpin on one side of the wheel. The wheel bolted to a stubby axle that rotated in bearings at the bottom of the kingpin. Ball joints allowed the kingpin to pivot left and right for steering and up and down for suspension travel. A single shock absorber handled suspension duties. A steering box connected the handles to the kingpin for steering input. The entire assembly mounted to Yamaha's unique Omega chassis, named for the Greek letter Omega because the visible aluminum frame plates looked like the symbol. Yamaha licensed Parker's patents in 1990 and spent 2 years adapting the design for production. They weren't just copying the concept, they were engineering it for mass production, reliability, and integration with a complete motorcycle. This wasn't a styling exercise or marketing gimmick. Yamaha was building the most technically advanced sport tourer ever attempted by a Japanese manufacturer. When Yamaha revealed the GTS 1000 specifications, the engineering gap between their approach and Suzuki's became obvious. The engine came from the FZR 1000 sports bike. Yamaha detuned it with milder camshafts and fitted completely new electronic fuel injection. The 1002cc inline-4 made 100 horsepower at 6,500 RPM and 78 pounds-per-feet of torque. A catalytic converter cleaned the exhaust. Electronic fuel injection was rare on motorcycles in 1993. Most bikes still used carburetors because they were cheaper and simpler, but fuel injection offered better throttle response, cleaner emissions, and consistent performance in all conditions. Every GTS 1000 sold in North America came with anti-lock braking systems. ABS was even rarer than fuel injection in 1993. The system prevented wheel lockup under panic braking. A 12.6-inch ventilated front disc worked with a 6-piston caliper. An 11.1-inch rear disc used a twin-piston caliper. The Omega chassis represented advanced thinking. 2 C-shaped aluminum plates formed the main structure. The engine bolted between them as a stressed member, meaning the engine helped support the chassis. Steel subframes attached to the aluminum plates for mounting the fairing, instruments, seat, and bodywork. The fuel tank sat high behind the engine, holding 5.3 gallons. Optional hard luggage from Chrysler turned the GTS into a serious touring machine. The entire package weighed 606 pounds wet. Suzuki had nothing remotely comparable in development. Their RF series used carburetors, conventional forks, standard brakes, and steel frames. The technology gap wasn't close. Yamaha had built a motorcycle from the future while Suzuki was still refining the present. The engineering theory behind the GTS 1000 was brilliant, but the real question was whether it actually worked better than conventional forks in real-world riding. According to magazine testing and long-term owner reports, the RADD suspension delivered exactly what it promised. Zero brake dive under heavy braking. The front end stayed composed and stable no matter how hard you squeezed the lever. You could apply maximum braking force while leaned over in a corner without the geometry changing or the bike standing up. Traditional forks change the bike's geometry when they compress under braking. The front end dives, the steering quickens, and the bike wants to stand up. Riders compensate for this automatically, but it limits how much braking force you can apply while cornered without running wide or losing control. The GTS eliminated that limitation completely. The suspension compressed vertically without affecting steering geometry. This meant you could brake later into corners and carry more speed through them with complete confidence. At triple-digit speeds, the bike felt incredibly stable and planted. The ride quality was noticeably smooth and compliant. Because the RADD system pivoted on ball joints rather than sliding on telescopic forks, there was less friction in the suspension action. This made the front end more sensitive to small bumps and irregularities in the road surface. The bike absorbed road imperfections that would cause conventional forks to judder or skip. Steering precision was exceptional. The reduced unsprung weight at the front meant less mass to steer, which theoretically should make the bike more responsive. The direct connection between the handlebars and the kingpin through the steering box eliminated any mushiness or flex that conventional fork systems experience under hard use. However, the system wasn't perfect. Steering effort was quite high, especially at speed. Taking the bike through a series of 70-mile-per-hour switchbacks required considerable strength according to Cycle World's long-term test. The physical effort needed to change direction quickly was noticeably higher than conventional sport tourers. The bike didn't self-center out of corners like conventional motorcycles either. You had to actively steer it back to straight rather than just releasing pressure and letting it happen naturally. This felt unnatural to riders accustomed to how normal bikes behave. There was a significant learning curve too. One long-term owner reported it took about 6 months to really get confident with the bike. The handling characteristics were different enough from conventional motorcycles that riders had to adapt their technique and trust the system. But once you learned how it worked, the GTS rewarded that learning with capability no conventional sport tourer could match. You could do things on the GTS that would unsettle or crash a bike with telescopic forks. The GTS 1000 launched in 1993 at $12,999. By 1994, the price increased to $14,999. Those numbers created an immediate problem that no amount of engineering excellence could solve. In 1993, competitors cost dramatically less. The Honda CBR 1000F was $7,699. The Kawasaki ZX-11 was $8,799. The Suzuki Katana 1100 was $7,929. Even Yamaha's own aging FJ1200 was just $8,999. The GTS cost $5,000 to $7,000 more than established sport tourers that delivered similar or better performance. You could buy 2 RF600s for the price of one GTS 1000. That math didn't work for most riders. The only bike priced comparably was the BMW K1100 RS at $14,676. But BMW had decades of reputation as a premium touring brand. Riders buying BMW is expected to pay extra for German engineering, build quality, and brand prestige. Yamaha was asking BMW money without BMW's luxury brand positioning. The weight was another serious issue. At 606 pounds wet, the GTS was substantially heavier than conventional sport tourers. The Omega chassis and RADD suspension added complexity and mass that couldn't be engineered away. The FJ1200 weighed about 550 pounds. The RF900 was similar. That 50 to 60 pound difference was immediately noticeable in everyday riding, especially at parking lot speeds where the bike felt cumbersome and difficult to maneuver. Performance didn't justify the premium either. The GTS made 100 horsepower from its detuned FZR 1000 engine. The RF900 made 125 to 130 horsepower for half the money. The CBR 1000F made similar power to the GTS for $5,000 less. Top speed was 139 miles per hour, which was competitive but not exceptional for the era. Quarter-mile times were good but not class-leading. Fuel economy was average, storage capacity was adequate with optional luggage but nothing special compared to competitors. The GTS offered superior braking stability and handling precision under specific conditions, but those advantages required a learning curve to appreciate fully. A rider test riding the bike for 20 minutes at a dealership wouldn't immediately feel $7,000 worth of superiority over a conventional sport tourer they already knew how to ride. Yamaha had built a bike that was objectively more advanced, but subjectively not compelling enough to justify double the price. The market delivered its verdict, quickly and decisively. In 1993, Yamaha sold fewer than 500 GTS 1000 units in the United States. Those numbers were catastrophic for a machine Yamaha had positioned as their flagship sport touring model. Compare that to the thousands of ST1100s Honda sold annually or the strong sales Suzuki achieved with their RF series. The GTS wasn't just underselling competitors, it was failing to find any meaningful market at all. Yamaha pulled the GTS from the US market after just 2 model years. The 1994 model year was the last time American riders could buy a new GTS 1000 from a dealership. That rapid withdrawal signaled how badly the bike had missed its sales targets and how much money Yamaha was losing on every unit produced. The GTS continued in other world markets through 1998, but production volumes remained minimal throughout its entire run. Total GTS 1000 production across all years and all markets was extremely limited. Exact numbers are difficult to verify, but the bike is rare today specifically because so few were built. Low production volumes meant Yamaha never achieved economies of scale that could have reduced manufacturer costs or improved profitability. Meanwhile, Suzuki's practical approach continued selling strongly year after year. The RF 900 became known as a solid, reliable sports tourer that delivered good performance without complications or premium pricing. It wasn't exciting or innovative, but riders bought it consistently throughout its production run from 1994 to 1999. Dealerships loved it because customers actually wanted to buy it. The sales battle proved something was crucial about motorcycle buyers in the 1990s. Engineering superiority matters less than perceived value. Technical innovation impresses magazine editors and wins awards, but it doesn't automatically translate to showroom traffic or actual sales. Riders wanted a bike they understood, could afford, and felt comfortable riding immediately. Yamaha learned these lessons the expensive way. The GTS 1000 won engineering awards, earned magazine praise, and generated tremendous publicity, but it lost the only battle that actually mattered to the company's bottom line. The battle for customers willing to pay premium prices for unfamiliar technology that required adaptation and trust. In June 1993, Rider magazine named the GTS 1000 their bike of the year. Their reasoning revealed the disconnect between what journalists valued and what customers actually wanted. The magazine wrote that fuel injection, ABS, catalytic converters, and forkless front ends were the most important innovation for motorcycling's future. The GTS 1000 combined all 4 systems. They had never had it easier picking their Bike of the Year award winner. Cycle World ran a long-term test and declared the GTS was quickly becoming a star favorite. They praised the powerful anti-lock brakes, potent engine, and optional saddlebags. But these positive reviews couldn't overcome the bike's commercial reality. Magazine editors rode multiple bikes and evaluated them on technical merit. Customers shopped with their own money and made decisions based on price, familiarity, and emotional appeal. The GTS impressed people who understood suspension geometry and chassis dynamics. It didn't impress people who walked into dealerships, sat on it, saw the price tag, and walked over to look at the FJ1200 instead. Awards and positive reviews generated publicity, but they didn't generate sales. Here's what matters most about the GTS 1000 story. Yamaha lost the sales battle decisively, but they won something more important for their reputation. They proved they could build technology that competitors couldn't match. Suzuki had no response to the RADD suspension. They had no comparable fuel injection system. They had no ABS option. They had no advanced chassis design. Their RF series bikes used conventional technology refined to good standards, but there was nothing innovative about them. When Yamaha revealed the GTS 1000, Suzuki's practical approach suddenly looked conservative and unambitious. Suzuki was building bikes that were good enough. Yamaha was building bikes that pushed boundaries. This matters in brand positioning. Yamaha established themselves as the company willing to take engineering risks. That reputation influences how riders perceive the entire brand, not just one model. The GTS 1000 became a halo product, a flagship that demonstrated capability even though it didn't sell in volume. Car companies do this regularly with limited production supercars. The point isn't to make money on that specific model, the point is to prove engineering excellence that elevates the entire brand. Suzuki won more customers in 1993 and 1994, but Yamaha won respect from engineers, journalists, and performance-orientated riders who appreciated technical innovation. Long-term, the GTS 1000 influenced how the industry thought about front suspension. It proved hub center steering could work in production. It demonstrated that eliminating brake dive was possible without electronic aids. It showed that radical innovation could be manufactured reliably. Other manufacturers studied the GTS to understand what it got right and what it got wrong. Bemotors Tezzi used similar hub center steering. BMW experimented with the concept. The technology didn't become standard, but the ambition influenced industry thinking. Yamaha proved that Japanese manufacturers could match or exceed European innovation. The GTS 1000 failed commercially but succeeded as an engineering statement. That success created a legacy that outlasted the bike itself and influenced motorcycle development in unexpected ways. Modern sports tourers use electronic systems to solve the problems the GTS solved mechanically. Traction control prevents rear wheel spin under acceleration. Cornering ABS modulates brake pressure based on lean angle to prevent loss of grip. Semi-active suspension adjusts damping rates in real time based on riding conditions. Stability control systems manage chassis dynamics to maintain optimal geometry. These electronic aids work differently than the RADD suspension, but they're solving the same fundamental problems the GTS addressed. The bike proved that eliminating brake dive and maintaining constant geometry under braking was valuable enough that riders would pay for it. Modern manufacturers learned that lesson but applied it through electronics integrated into conventional fork designs rather than radical mechanical redesigns. Yamaha's willingness to risk commercial failure for technical innovation established a pattern the company continues today. Their cross-plane crankshaft R1 engine was unconventional and expensive to develop but delivered unique performance characteristics. Their chip-controlled throttle system was complex but improved rideability. Their unified braking system coordinated front and rear brakes for optimal stopping power. All of these innovations followed the GTS philosophy: engineer the best solution regardless of whether it's conventional. The collector market today values GTS 1000s as significant motorcycles despite their commercial failure. Low production numbers make them genuinely rare. The radical technology makes them historically interesting. The Bike of the Year award gives them documented significance. Values have increased steadily as collectors recognize the bike's importance in motorcycle history. Long-term owners who understand the GTS defend it passionately. They appreciate the handling characteristics that conventional riders never learned to exploit. They value the engineering excellence even though the market rejected it. These owners represent the audience Yamaha was actually building for, not the mass market that wanted something familiar and affordable. Museum collections include GTS 1000 specifically because of their technical significance and place in motorcycle evolution. The Throttle Stop Museum in Wisconsin houses one in impeccable condition with only 4,800 miles. The curator called it a beautiful piece of engineering that was quirky and extreme, possibly a branding exercise that meant to inspire both the public and Yamaha's own engineering staff. That last point reveals something important about why Yamaha built the GTS. The bike might have been as much about internal corporate culture as external sales. Yamaha was asking their engineers and designers a fundamental question: are we the company that plays it safe and follows trends? Or are we the company that pushes limits and leads innovation? The GTS answered that question decisively and established Yamaha's identity as a technical leader willing to take risks. Put a 1993 Yamaha GTS 1000 next to a 1994 Suzuki RF 900 and the philosophy gap becomes obvious. The Suzuki uses a steel frame, conventional forks, carburetors, standard brakes, and chain drive. Every component is proven technology. Nothing is radical or innovative. Everything is familiar. The bike costs $7,000 to $8,000 and delivers 125 to 130 horsepower. It works well immediately. The Yamaha uses an aluminum Omega chassis, hub center steering, fuel injection, ABS, and a stressed member engine. Every component represents advanced thinking. Nothing is conventional. The bike costs $15,000 and delivers 100 horsepower. It works brilliantly once you learn how to ride it properly. Suzuki built for the market that exists. Yamaha built for the market they wish existed. Suzuki optimized for immediate sales. Yamaha optimized for long-term reputation and engineering credibility. Both approaches have merit. Suzuki's practical bikes kept riders happy and dealerships profitable. Yamaha's ambitious flagship proved the company could innovate at the highest level even when the market wasn't ready. The RF 900 sold better and survived longer in production, but nobody remembers it as particularly significant. It was a good bike that did its job competently and then was replaced. The GTS 1000 sold terribly and disappeared quickly, but people still discuss it decades later as one of the most interesting motorcycles of the 1990s. That's the real comparison. Suzuki won customers, Yamaha won history. Yamaha didn't silence Suzuki through sales numbers or racing victories. They silenced Suzuki through engineering ambition that made Suzuki's practical approach look timid and conservative. When the GTS 1000 launched, Suzuki had no response. They couldn't match the technology. They couldn't argue their RF series bikes were more advanced. They could only point to sales figures and affordable pricing. Those arguments worked with customers shopping for practical transportation, but they didn't work with engineers, journalists, or performance enthusiasts who valued technical innovation. In those circles, Yamaha won decisively. This created a lasting perception gap between the two brands. Yamaha became known for engineering ambition and technical innovation. Suzuki became known for practical, reliable bikes built to budget constraints. Both approaches have their place, but one earns more respect from people who care about motorcycles as engineering achievements. The GTS 1000 proved that winning doesn't always mean selling more units. Sometimes winning means proving you can build what others cannot, even when the market isn't ready to buy it. That's a different kind of victory, but it's a victory that shapes brand identity for decades. Suzuki sold more bikes in 1993 and 1994, but ask any motorcycle enthusiast today which company showed more engineering courage, and the answer is obvious. Yamaha built the future even though riders wanted the present. That boldness silenced critics who claimed Japanese manufacturers only knew how to copy and refine, never to innovate and lead. The shocking truth isn't that the GTS 1000 succeeded commercially, it's that commercial failure didn't matter. Yamaha won the engineering war, proved their technical capability, and established a brand identity that continues paying dividends today. Sometimes the most important victories happen when nobody is buying what you're selling. They happen when you prove what's possible, not profitable. The GTS 1000 was that kind of victory. And that's why we're still talking about it 30 years later, while nobody discusses the Suzuki RF series despite its better sales. Which matters more to you, the bike that wins sales or the bike that wins respect? Drop your take in the comments below. And if you want more videos about the engineering battles and innovation wars that shaped motorcycle history, subscribe and hit the notification bell.